The story where Jesus walks on top of the water in Matthew 14, before he walks on the water and scares the living daylights out of the apostles because no one walks on water, What's he do? He sends them into a storm. He just fed 5,000 people. He's a little tired probably after that. So he says, I'm gonna stay here for a little while. I'm gonna pray you guys get to the other side. I'll meet you over there. So he says, go, and they go. And as they go, a storm comes. Well, he knew the storm was coming. He wanted them to go into the storm. He wanted them to be in the storm. You in a storm right now? You lose your job? Frustrated with an addiction? Troubles at home? Got a child who's sick? You sick? Don't get me wrong, it's not that God wants that, but God brings the storm. He can handle the sickness. He can handle the addiction. He can handle the job loss. He can handle all the frustrations you got and I got. He can handle sin, but he sends us into storms. He lets them come our way. Especially, I think, for us as men who are so tempted to think that we have it all together. Old priest friend of mine used to say, kind of a dangerous thing to say to guys, but he used to say, some people need sin. Some people need sin. That's not an encouragement to go run out and sin, but some guys need it. Why? Because we think we're all together. We think we're flawless. We think we're doing just fine. We think we don't need God. You desperately need God. And if you've forgotten that, you might get that diagnosis. You might get that phone call or that call into the office and lose your job. You might be on your knees again, brought there simply because you've been reminded in your own sin of how weak you are. You might be at the bedside of your child who's battling cancer. You might be in the bed. God's right there with you, trying to straighten out what was bent, either the illusion that you were fine or the illusion that he was weak. You're not fine. I'm not okay. You're not okay. Sorry, I'm sick. You're sick. That's reality. He's not. He is power. I love to read books. So I'm reading a book right now called The Gift of Faith, pronounced by a Polish man whose name I continue to butcher, so I won't say it. The book's called The Gift of Faith. I gotta believe this is the best book I've ever read in my life. It's extraordinary. If you're looking for a great book to read right now, if your prayer is dry, if your relationship with God is who knows where, I can't encourage this enough. This is an exceptional book and great to pray with. This is what he writes in there at a certain point. He says, God getting closer to man weakens him. He does just the opposite of what we would expect. You may believe that it is you who are approaching him, and that under those conditions you should become increasingly stronger and increasingly more able to get along by yourself. However, it's he who's coming closer to you, and his approach makes you weaker, physically, mentally, or spiritually. He does this in order to dwell in you with his might, since it is your weakness that makes room for him. When you are weak, you cannot believe in yourself. You can't trust yourself. And then the opportunity comes for you to turn to him and to desire to rely on him. So often you shield yourself against this greatest grace, the grace of weakness. But St. Paul has already written, for power is made perfect in weakness. I will rather boast most gladly of my weaknesses, in order that the power of Christ may dwell with me. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Your own power and your own strength must collapse sooner or later. Strictly speaking, there is nothing you can exclusively call your own strength. Any kind of strength you have is a gift which you usually claim as your own, and that is why it must be taken from you. He says again, a person who is poor in spirit is someone who is stripped of self-confidence. He's one who knows that he cannot count on himself or on his own strength. That kind of person is oriented towards awaiting everything from God and is not rooted in temporal things. If you feel that you are strong in the sense that you possess natural abilities, then your faith cannot develop and strengthen. That is why you have to experience your weakness. You have to realize that there are things you cannot do. This will be the call to faith. Your weakness, your inability, and your helplessness. will become a crack through which the grace of faith will squeeze into your heart. So if you're here today, brothers, and you feel a bit broken, you feel a bit tired, you feel struggling, you feel weak, you feel frustrated, good. Now God can act.